Welcome back. Thank you for the active participation in the last session. Hopefully, this will not bore you because, again, it's after lunch and we're all a bit slow now. We had a good session and we're trying to actually have a continuous flow of the things we are doing. That's why the presentations are reflected in our activities, and those activities are continuous with our exercises. So this is also something that we discussed during our activity last session, because we were trying to draft out policies, and the data over here and the information over here, I'm sure every one of us know. But we'll just go over the legal framework, and legal framework as in mostly how actually it came about, why those acts are there, and how are those acts, how did those acts come into existence. So I think we have to go a bit back when we talk about environmental policy and conservation, right? So of course we are all very aware of the colonial era. We had the British over here, and of course from the British perspective, it was always forests were looked as a resource. It's still a resource, but we look at it very differently. So they mainly they mainly did extraction because of construction. A lot of extraction went on, a lot of destruction went on, because they saw the vast wilderness of India, and they saw the raw materials that could be, generated from it. So the first act, as in the officially Forest Act or official Environmental Act, if we say, is the Indian Forest Act, which came about in 1927, still in the British era. But what the act was mostly, as we see, is because of, from their perspective, it was to mostly extract and use those forests for other things, right? But then again, we had our independence, right? And independent India, we wanted a lot of things because, as I was saying to someone, historically, what we have seen is actually after independence, when the British left, we were a vast country, right? And we were a very, very poor country then. So the priority was always to use those forests, and the priority was not, because today we have a priority of forest conservation and biodiversity conservation. Initially, that was not the case. What it wanted to do, what the Indian government wanted to do, was feed our citizens, right? That was our main goal, and that's why we also see the green policies coming in. So the Forest Act, it essentially it was still being used. The same ones were being used till 1952, in more or less the same version as the British were using it. So logging, deforestation, these were very common, right? But then in 1952, we got our first national forest policy. And this is just showing a bit about extraction and what do we call it? De-wilding or stuff, because not only the British, but also because we had a lot of Rajas, Maharajas, the princes over there, and hunting was a very favorite sport of everyone. Everyone wanted to hunt down the biggest tigers. They wanted to hunt down big game, and it was like a pride where someone, if he kills down a tiger, he got his photo done. So, and one of the connecting things was that because of the big game hunting that went on, as we know, we had the cheetahs till 1960s and stuff, but then the cheetahs were completely extinct, right? And most of you must be aware that from last year we have the cheetahs back in Kuno, but we're still facing problems. But however, till like the game hunting was so severe that it caused extinction of that species from the whole country, right? This was the scale and intensity of how forests and big game wildlife was hampered. As I said, independent India's priority was not forest conservation. it was the green revolution because we wanted to grow more crops to feed our citizens, right? And we have this dilemma still now, but then it was the more dilemma as in, so to grow the agricultural landscapes, we had to clear down forests, right? And that kept happening until Forest Conservation Act till 1980. So 1970s and 1980s were the times when it was actually, at a policy level, it was actually thought out that no, we cannot have this going on. We want some regulation as to it, right? And yeah, so if we have like a yearly, how it actually came down. So we had the forest conservation in 1980, as we all are all aware. Yeah, as I said, the primary purpose was to regulate and restriction of the diversion of the forest land for non-forest purposes, right? So now, if they wanted to have some extraction, they needed like approvals from the central government. So what we can see is the initiation of policies, the initiation of stricter laws that prohibit forest degradation. Of course, one of the important ones was Wildlife Protection Act. So this not only talked about the habitat or the trees or just agricultural expansion. This focused on the animal species. Right now, plants are also being included in the act, like the Schedule 6, I believe. But for Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, we all know are the most important and iconic or mega species that we have, right? Wildlife. And also 1972, there's also one big project that was initiated. Can anyone say what that is? It's a very iconic in the 1970s. Tiger conservation. So, yeah, the Tiger project was launched. I mean, it was initiated in 1971, but 73 was when it was launched. So, at that time, it was actually, Wildlife Protection Act also came. So the Tiger project also came. So, yeah. And later on, we now know that the belief was that our forests, our biodiversity is not just related or not just, accumulated in forests, right? They are not a separate entity saying, okay, if we conserve Kaziranga, the rhinos will be there forever. It's not. So we now had the concept of biological diversity. And biodiversity includes everything. So it includes even domestic animals. So we do need a variety of biodiversity so that everything is linked. So it's a well-functioning system. Otherwise, we're going to lose, right? If we try to only conserve the tiger and have the forests as a separate entity and not think about the people that are living there, okay? So, and the people would have their livestock. If we don't think about the livestock there, it's very difficult to conserve the tiger, right? They're not always very apparent, like how it's connected, but everything is connected, and hence we need like a holistic approach to things, right? And of course, we have the State Biodiversity Department here, the Biodiversity Board. So it actually came from the Convention of Biological Diversity. So this is also one of the things I wanted to emphasize, how actually the international treaties are being utilized and put into our acts. So again, these policies that we have, say we have national and state level policies, they are not different or separate entities again. They all have some a similar goal, as in how to conserve the biological diversity. So CBD came in, Convention of Biological Diversity, which is an international treaty, and different countries, including India, got their own version, right? So the international treaties, they don't have their laws because it's a treaty and it's just a framework. And so different countries adopt it differently. For example, in the Europe, we have the European directives. So those are only directives, principles saying we should do this, we should do that. But how that is achieved is dependent on that specific country's government, right? So the UK has different laws, Spain has different laws, France has different laws, but it's connected to same forest directive, right? And similar with us as well, because if we don't connect this, and not have a holistic approach, then the world will be going somewhere else and our country will be going somewhere else. So it's like a holistic approach that we need. Again, and then the Forest Rights Act came in. So now we were talking about a lot of wildlife and biodiversity, and one of the issues with a lot of people who work with biodiversity and wildlife also always consider that the people are the problem. The where are the resources being used? Oh, the local people, they just destroy everything. That was the whole understanding, right? Why are tigers being killed? Oh, the local people poach. That's the answer. But we understand that's not the actual reason, and that's what the Forest Rights Act talked about. As in, if we don't have rights for the indigenous people, because these are the people who are in that landscape, right? And also in conservation, we have a term called NIMBY, which is not in my backyard. So as conservationist, because I was also involved in a tiger project, and it was in a different state. Like in Maharashtra, I was there. I don't belong to that specific tribe or that specific local people. So it's always, I am, whenever something happens, some conflict happened or someone killed a leopard or something happened, it was always easy for us to say, oh, the local people killed it, right? But we don't know the drivers of that, right? So it's very easy for me to say that, but I would not have welcomed that in my backyard, right? If some wildlife comes into my backyard, I won't have the same reaction, right? So again, yeah, the Forest Rights Act. Again, the recent developments and different management perspectives. Again, it's all very state specific, as in different states have their own different policies. We are aware of the joint forest management principles, JFMC, are very common, where we do have a holistic management. So also involve the local people for forest protection and management. So now what we are looking into is not wildlife and biodiversity as different things, but it's like a holistic approach. It's like a one world, one earth, because it's just one ecosystem, and the local people, the wildlife, the biodiversity, the forests, they are all interconnected, right? So this was the overall approach of the certain acts. So we do have a lot of other green laws that we say. We have the Environment Act and Pollution Act, but because our topic today is forest and biodiversity, I just wanted to give a brief about what we have in terms of forest and only biodiversity. So now let's also talk about how the story goes in terms of, we now have these laws, right? Now we are talking about a holistic approach. Now we are talking about conservation, but is that working, right? From the law department or implementation wise, now we have stricter laws, right? For forest degradation or wildlife hunting, we have a lot of laws, but are those laws helping our forests, helping our wildlife? So this is a forest cover map of India, what we see, and it is a bit, a lot of text over here, but now because of our, the government's initiatives, we have almost about 1,000 protected areas in India, right? So that itself is like an achievement, because not only notification, we understand some areas are still facing problems. We know that, okay, notifying that protected area will not, does not necessarily mean conservation. But what it does is that it sets land aside, right? So when we say about protected areas, we now know it's connected to the total area of India, which is conserved, right? So now we have 5.2%, almost 5%, just over 5% coverage of our country. So India's land mass, like 5% of it, we are able to conserve, right? So we have these laws in place. And how does Meghalaya fare into this? So for Meghalaya, again, this is statistics, you can find it anywhere, but about 1,200 square kilometers constitute, and again, similarly, 5% of the state's geographical area is protected now, right? We have 2 national parks, 4 wildlife sanctuaries, 1 biosphere reserve. Right? We know all of them. I think some of it is maybe included in the pre-assessments. Yeah, and we can see from the very dense forest, it's a bit blurry, but areas like this, we have fairly moderate to dense forest. Meghalaya is very rich in terms of everything environment. So yeah, this is the present state of what we are at, right? And obviously, when we talk about national laws and Project Tiger, as we talked about, I believe the story is incomplete if we don't talk about tigers, because I know a lot of investment has gone to tigers, and all people talk about is tigers, and we neglect other species. But what this shows is a positive story. It has a positive story where all of these laws that we had, right? All of the conservation that we did, all of the protected area lands that we set aside, did that work, right? And then the story of the tiger is actually evident of that. That when we put together conservation resources, when we put together forest department and local peoples, locals and different stakeholders, then the story is a positive story. Of course, there are sometimes there's tiger hunting there is still rampant. Tigers are still being killed in many states. However, the overall story that we see, as I said, it was launched in 1971, 72, but the launch of the project was in 1973. An important part was also the Wildlife Protection Act, which came in 1972. And then initially it was just Project Tiger. Like it was like what did you call it? Like an action plan, or they had a task force, but it was not like a law. There was no authority to it. So in 2006, the National Tiger Conservation Authority came into force. And that's important because do we know why and how it turned from like a task force of like few people? Now it's a different, it's a whole authority in itself, which actually supports the Ministry of Environment and Forests. Do we know what happened to this? Anyone? Okay. So what happened was, if we heard about 2004 Sariska event happened. So in Sariska National Park, Sariska Tiger Reserve, which is in Rajasthan, they kept mentioning about tiger numbers, saying we have this tiger, we have 4 tigers, we have 10 tigers. But in 2004, when Wildlife Institute of India and again tiger experts went in and actually surveyed the area, there were no tigers. But it was still functioning as a tiger reserve, right? It's just a namesake tiger reserve, but there's no tigers in it. So that's what we call the Sariska dilemma. So in 2004, they knew that there were no tigers, and that a more stricter act or stricter policies should be taken up, and that's when they formed this group, right? And 2005 actually they got the whole policy together, and then it gave birth to the National Tiger Conservation Authority. Initially, it was 100% of the funding to the tiger reserves was done by NTCA, right? Now it's about 50%. The 50% has to be coughed up from the state, and 50% has to be done from the NTCA. And now, because of NTCA's regulation, NTCA's regulations, and how NTCA actually does the whole tiger conservation or tiger monitoring, we now see, you must have all seen this graph go on, right? So in 2006, which was a very, what do I say? It's a very basic assessment that we did countrywide. We found 1,400 tigers, about 1,400 tigers, 1,411, of course. And this was done by mainly science surveys and stuff. So it's very difficult. The technology was also not that great. Now we have eDNA and camera traps and satellite technologies, now we are very, very sure of how many tigers there are. So it's an increase, of course. Then 2010, 2014, 18, and last year it was 2022, where we found 3,600 tigers. Some report there are at least 3,100. So this is the upper estimate. But it also talks about how the efforts helped, right? What were the efforts that were done in the conservation reserves or the tiger reserves? Was that from the people from Forest Department would know, they do something called a phase 4 monitoring. Have you heard about that? I think Meghalaya, it's still not started yet. But phase 4, as in they count all of the tigers, right? They put cameras everywhere. So we have 1 square kilometer grids. So each kilometer, we know if there are tiger occurrences and reoccurrences. And by using the stripes, we can actually identify which individual that is, right? Now, with technology, we don't have to, initially we had to manually check if the stripes match, right? But now we have AI and technology. So once we feed in the data, it knows which individual it is. So if we put in a different image, it can determine, is it the same individual or not? So what I'm trying to say is that because of the laws, because of the policies, that's how our conservation story goes, right? We see the increase of land area conserved. We also see, and again, this one still has caveats, still has problems. The problem is that the blue one is the sample area, right? And the other parts are still unsampled. So I believe, and again, Northeast is not really sampled, apart from Kaziranga and things like that. So if we have like more sampling, maybe there are more tigers in, right? And again, that's one of this reason as well. So 2006, people can say like, oh, our tiger numbers have increased manyfold, but that may not be the case. Maybe there were already the tigers were there, but the efforts kept increasing every year, right? And that's what made the difference. At least now we know how many tigers there are. So, it's like an evolution of stuff. As I said, in terms of coverage, tiger presence, this is the tiger presence. So we just know tiger presence is from Pake, Kaziranga, Manas, and all these areas, right? But the overall areas, again, we see the green one is the sampled forest, which is like only this part. But most of them, the gray part is still not sampled, right? However, with all those caveats as well, regardless of the caveats, we now have like, I would say, the most informed generation of tiger understanding. Like now students, now researchers know what tigers do, how many tigers there are, what forests they live in. And because it's so heavily sampled, tigers, and in the morning session, Professor Nag mentioned about keystone species. So it is a species which sort of reflects or represents the whole ecosystem, right? Because we have so much of monitoring for the tigers, we now know how many and what is the status of these small cats as well, right? The picture is not very clear, but yeah, we now have a lot of information of the other carnivores that we have. We also now have a lot of information on what prey there are, how many sambars there are, right? How many barking deers there are. So it's like a holistic approach. When we have protection for the tiger, it's the whole ecosystem that's being served, right? And again, it's not just happened because of the Forest Department or their activities. It is majorly because of the initiatives that they've taken. But as we know, if we don't include, as the first exercise that we did, if it's not the stakeholders, if we don't include all the stakeholders, it's very difficult to actually conserve a tiger or conserve a forest. So one of the better parts of our story of conservation is that the local people, they're either being served or they're being helpful in actually becoming the country's, conserving the country's forest and biodiversity wealth. So this is again only for the tiger conservation that's been done countrywide. So there are a lot of credibility services for the communities. You must have heard of village eco development committees, VEDCs, or in Assam we call it VDCs. So these are eco development committees. We see resources being given as solar lights, and then livestock immunization. Then there are free medical camps for the local people from the forest department. They introduce village schools, gas plants, and then as we were discussing, which is very true, where the local people were being trained up as different professionals. So they run driving camps, so they can have their own income, as in they're driving cars and furniture making, hospitality management, and things like that. So it's not that just the tigers being conserved, it's the whole economy that's being impacted. Yeah, it's vermicomposting and promoting regional crafts from lantana. As we also know, lantana camera is the most problematic in terms of weed. It's the weed. So again, because so much of monitoring goes on across India for tigers, we now also have a map of lantana camera. So we now know where lantana is and how lantana, that weed species, can be actually used, and actually they can be removed from the ecosystem. And that's how regional crafts come in. So now we are sort of blending science with arts, and then also creating some income sources, right? On farm activities, if we get help from or funding from the department, the local people can grow specific products, and then they can sell that. You always see a souvenir shop when you visit a national park or wildlife sanctuary, whatever. So again, that comes as an added income generation. And this one you can all check. We'll share the slides. So this is all from the reports that actually reported. I think that's about it. That's the whole sort of legal framework and how it actually equates to our real world problems. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting. And anyone know this waterfall? It's very famous. Sorry? Yeah, no, correct. Last time I was there, it was good. Okay, so this is the first presentation. Now we'll go to a specific activity, right? We now know the laws, the policies, and how everything is done. So if you can see that the next one is community-based biodiversity conservation, trying to boost local economies. You can draw a lot of examples from whatever was shared, or come up with your own. And it's a case study. We mentioned in case study in Reboy, but now we'll go for an imaginary case. Okay.
So the community activity here is that you have to imagine there is a wetland where there are several factors attached to the wetland. It's a very important area for fishermen because the entire fish market around, and there is a city nearby. From the fish from this wetland is transported there. First factor. Second is it receives migratory birds every year. Third issue is that it is very close to a city, and there is a dumping ground that is very much close to this particular wetland. Again, this particular wetland has very endemic fishes to the region also. I guess everybody knows what is endemic species. Any species which is confined to a particular geographical area.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the wetland, and we'll divide you into groups, and you have to boost the local economy. And what can be done to boost the local economy? Again, we'll find solutions from everybody, and we'll frame a policy after that.
Yes.
Keeping in mind that there is no policy as ever till now.
Yeah. So we'll start now, and you can again come up and take your your
respective
specific
departments.
stakeholders here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Please.
anybody. Just choose one. I know it's a little bit visible. So boosting the tourism industry, but keeping in mind the ecosystem, conservation, wildlife, everything.
So can you repeat the scenario?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. Yours is? Fisheries department. How can fishing? Now, fishing is a source of livelihood to the people. So, and the local people who are there, they are fishing for generations. So, can we strike a deal by conserving the fishes also? At which time of the year to fish? What type of fishes they can market? So, a policy in that sense. Local NGOs can help everything there, right? The tourism industry can be boosted by the local NGOs by preparing various items, just like the local business men are there, like souvenir shops. There's another problem to this particular wetland, that it is crowded by water hyacinth. You know what are water hyacinths, right?
So we break now.
Now you can use this also as a part of making any product or whatever it is. Local NGOs have to just look for protection of the wetland at any means, so that the tourism industry does not come in line of conservation. The fisheries do not come in the line of conservation, neither the local businessmen come in the line of conservation.
So we make like a sustainable wetland.
You have to make a sustainable wetland.
area. We boosting economy and also protecting some of it.
We have to boost the economy, we have to support the local livelihood, as well as you have to conserve the wetland. There is another part to this particular
Exercise.
exercise, that you also have to prioritize the hierarchy here. That means, in the first activity we were just telling about ourselves, we are advocating for ourselves. Now you can advocate for somebody else also. That means, to boost the local economy, according to you, if you think that the fisheries department should be at the top of the hierarchy, you will put them at the top of the hierarchy.
Prioritizing them.
Prioritizing. If second you think local businessmen are more prioritizing the wetland, then they will come number 2. But this decision should be unanimous among all the 4 groups.
So because we now have 4 groups, so prioritize it as you like. Which do you think maybe is the most important stakeholder?
It may not be you.
Okay, it may not be you.
It may be somebody else also.
So one is within your groups and one is across your groups. Right? This is businessmen. they take all the money. So
I'll give you another example. Let's say in Guwahati, if you have visited, there is a very famous wetland called the Dipor Bill. It's also a wildlife sanctuary as well. It receives around 500 species of migratory birds every year. But it is also under constant stress. There is a garbage dump. The entire city's garbage dump is nearby. There is a railway line also passing through it. And the Rani Gaurbhanga Wildlife Sanctuary is also, the reserve forest is also nearby, from where migratory elephants come to the bill for drinking water. So it is a very ecologically important area, and it's a Ramsar site as well. You know what is a Ramsar site? Anybody? The forest department people. What is a Ramsar site? Wetland which is very much important for birds, which receives birds, or you can say it's a very ecologically rich wetland. We have 2, I guess, in Northeast India, the Loktak Lake,
Loktak is
Dipor
one.
Bill and
Rudrasagar.
Rudrasagar.
Which is in Tripura.
yes, it's in Tripura.
So it all dates back to the Ramsar Convention. I didn't mention that.
Yes,
but it's a
it was
Ramsar
held in
Convention.
Iran
Yeah.
and also the IBA.
So
It's also an
Wetland
important bird area.
protection. The Dipor Bill is IBA.
So we have to first of all ecologically conserve this particular wetland. But at the same time, if you just go and tell the fishermen to stop fishing from tomorrow, it is not a permanent solution to it, right? Just like evicting people out from a tiger reserve. Either you have to give them any other livelihood, alternative livelihood that we say, or you have to maintain certain regulations where they are also not economically harmed. So there are various level of stakeholders working in that particular wetland. Fishermen are fishing, right? Local businessmen can devise something from where, let's say, they can use the water hyacinth to make certain products, or they can, the tourism industry can like start boat rides or something, which does not harm the environment. So that is the local NGO's job to intervene. The fishery department has the major role to play, because if the fishing goes out of hand, and if they're fishing the endemic fishes, also if they're fishing the fishes during the reproductive cycle season, then it will be a very big issue. So that is how all the stakeholders come into play while boosting the local economy and also conserving the particular. Now, fishery department, every national park, sanctuary, if you go to Kaziranga, let's say you hire a jeep, the money goes into the pockets of the government first, but the driver who is driving, he also gets some money back home. When the tourist comes, a homestay owner also gets something. You open a small souvenir shop outside, that also gets a little bit of benefit. So this is how one tourist can affect the entire economy of that particular area. Keeping all these things in mind, you have to put your thoughts in. Not clear?
We'll break for tea in some time. So I was thinking we'll break for tea, but just hold on a minute, and then from tea we'll get refreshed and we can start.
See, I'll give you a small idea if you're a little bit confused.
Brainstorming now.
We got it.
Okay, let's see.
Do we have to talk from the perspective of NGO you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say the garbage dump. It's a ecological issue.
Yeah.
There the tourism cannot do anything. If you have to mitigate a plan, you will have to do it. You will have to tell us with your expertise.
Who's managing the wetland? Is it a community or private?
Right now, nobody is managing it.
Belongs to
It's just an imaginary wetland.
It's an imaginary wetland. Nobody is managing it. There are no policies, framework into action.
Yeah.
The government is not there right now.
Yeah, let's say it's just been formed.
Let's say it's 1947 right now.
47 again.
No, but who will have authority? So we can claim authority also.
Yes.
Yeah, you can claim
Yes,
authority.
you can claim authority.
It's just so the local businessmen maybe stay nearby.
The fishery department's main job is to
Yeah, exactly.
make the regulations. No, but as it is a government department,
You can say community.
and we have just started making the policy, so you can claim the regulations. You can claim the authority.
Because this is also like stakeholders, and this is
Yes.
like a profession also. So in terms of
Maybe
businessmen,
endemic,
how do
maybe
businessmen
threatened,
see
maybe vulnerable.
like a natural land or a wetland? They would, use or extract some, natural products. Saying, just an example. So how do local businessmen could sustainably utilize some of this, right? And then boosting some of the economy. So they'll maybe make like a resort, like a homestay, things like that. How does like a businessman think about it?
Have you heard of the Kumbhi Kagaz? You can Google it, you'll find a solution to this answer. Kumbhi Kagaz. Kumbhi Kagaz.
Angkor. We can break for tea. So too involved now. It's okay. Because we just have 1 hour to go, and then if you want to freshen up, so it will be a good break. Like 10 minutes, we can come back. It's in the hostel where we had lunch, hostel mess. And then if one of you can, how many of you? Can we start? Yeah. So whoever is willing. This is the, what were you? Tourism. Okay, good. Come, we can start with yours.
As you all know, tourism is the main booster or provider for local economy in any area. So, to attract the tourism, the stakeholders have to provide them the required facility, and tourism, the local stakeholders should support the tourism in a sustainable way. A sustainable tourism, come ecotourism, come green tourism.
Activity.
Now the tourists, if they will be attracted if they good facilities. Now tourists are basically two types: high-end tourists and low-end tourists. So high-end tourists will need more better facilities, and low-end tourists can be supported by homestays, and high-end tourists maybe like 3-star, 5-star hotels may be required. Then locals can provide tourists with biodegradable stuff so that they don't pollute the environment, and some some guidelines how to promote the ecotourism in the ecotourism centers. And the indigenous tribes there, they can promote their products, their indigenous food, and even wherever traditional knowledge they can share, which will give them good livelihood returns. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, anyone else? जिसका
I
हो
guess
गया है.
they're ready.
Yeah, whoever is ready. Local fisher, local NGO.
How do I do this? So hello everyone. I think you remember us. We were the tea estate owners, but now after a bit of introspection and self-reflection, we realized that now we need to care for everybody, and also So we're representing the local NGO. So we have divided into 3 parts. First, we wanted to set up a self-help group. And this self-help group will be acting as the fishing committee to regulate fishing activities. And also the season, the regulation of fishing season, regulation of fishing equipments, because some of these fishing nets, sometimes if they are very the sieves are very small, so even the fishing fingerlings, or what do they say?
Yeah.
They might get trapped into that. And then ban of explosives, ban poaching, no bird hunting. Then we had some recommendations for tourism also. Promotion of strictly will at least 80% of ecotourism practices. Then setting up of bird watching sites and boating areas to be set up. and boats should be like non-motorized, those paddled ones. Entry fee will be applicable. Sustainable tourism and safety and security of the tourists should be taken care by the tourism department. And another one is the regulation of the markets for the business people. Now, because now we are giving advice.
They are not the businessmen now.
No. We have done like a bit of meditation and all in the Himalayas. So now we are like. So we do have recommendations for the market for the business people that to promote traditional products made by the locals, must employ locals from the area in vicinity, and regulation fee is also to be levied. So this entry fee and regulation fee will be by us, but all proceeds shall be used to manage the dumping site. Like we had an issue with the dumping site thing, no? So we will be using this profit to employ volunteers and recruit them, and management of the dumping site. So that's all from us. Thank you.
So hello everyone again. Here we are representing another department of the government. So we have shifted to fisheries department anyway. So in order to boost the local economy of the people and to conserve the wetlands, so these are a few measures that the fishery department can initiate. The first one is the introduction of fish nurseries in the wetland. Second is introduction of new species of fishes which can coexist with the endemic species, or in other term we can say mutualism coexistence. Then number 3 is to prohibit using of blast fishing and other means such as using of chemicals such as cyanide in fishing. Then prohibit fishing during reproductive seasons. We'll be providing spawning, feeding and recovery habitat for the fishes. And last one is to provide training to the local community regarding conservative measures.
Very nice.
Hello everyone. Again, we're back to business from the. So, what the topic is regarding the wetland, considering all the factors from wetland, then the endemic fishes, then the migratory birds, and all those dumping sites and all. We have come to a conclusion, and the main target of the local businessmen is, since fishing, the fish is also of endemic importance, and we can export those endemic species as well as marketing them to the local market. And apart from that, we can give value addition through like making of the dry fish or by making pickles, etc. And if, during that time when we discuss about this, the presence of the water hyacinth in the water body, that this water hyacinth products can be made into a form of a paper, baskets, table mats, etc. And through this, generating employment to the locals can be also be imported. And we can even give training to the local people so that they can be employed through making of these products, and providing homestays and souvenir shops. And we can even provide ecotourism to those local people by giving them kind of a training as local guides to those, especially for tourists who come to see those migratory birds. And here we added one more target. It's like annual festival. So as of this festival, you can say as like because we have two options, or we can come in combination of both. If we look up, we'll see the migratory birds. If we look down, we'll see those endemic species, fishes. So in that process, we can involve the two departments, especially tourism department and the fisheries department, and we're looking for sponsorship also from them. So that is also our target. And this large scale production of these fishes are very important, so that we can publicize more and more, so that people will come to know about the importance of that particular wetland. We can have both profits, like we can, if like what I said, up the birds, down the fishes. So again, to increase the economy of this local economy, like earlier, like what I said, just to boost to the solution to these problems, or to the businessmen, we can employ more local youths by making this value addition, making them as tour guides, and to provide them as this employment opportunities through the homestays. And through this, like what I said, most of the businessmen, they think only of business, but what we thought of, like we try to conserve these wetlands by whatever profit we get from those which we have on sale or in the market. Like 5% of the profit will be cleaning those sites where the dumping site was being, a pile of those garbage was there, and we'll look up to those local headmen or communities to relocate the dumping site, so that more attraction of birds will get and more of the endemic species will survive. Yeah. And 5% again will be for the development of the community as a whole. So in or to the NGOs, we can say. So so the 5% and 5% will be 10% of what the profit we get will go to these. And so again, so that like what we said earlier, like the festivals, we want to be held annually. So we have to restrict towards the fishing, so that it will not be continuously fish. So for that, we keep a restriction that fishing will not be allowed during the breeding season. Yeah. So, and the revenue from all the above will be used for cleaning and maintenance of the area. And for that, we are, like I told, we are not only in terms of business, we are also thinking of conservation. So whatever the products which we use or which we'll be making out of these will be biodegradable. So that is all from our side. Thank you.
Very good. So thank you again for the participation, brainstorming and the stuff. So finally, we've almost kind of completed, and we now understand like how do we sustainably use a wetland resource and adjacent areas. So finally, we'll do just one final exercise, and then we'll complete today's session. As we said, as you mentioned about the social hierarchy, if you remember, now you talk amongst yourselves and you be that specific stakeholder, but try to prioritize yourself in terms of importance. Do you think there's a priority? And if there is a priority, then just any one of you can come here and order yourselves in terms of that priority. Is it? You can just discuss among yourselves and see.
Just like a prime minister, home minister.
Is there a hierarchy? That's what we're trying to see.
When we talk about conserving this wetland. If yes, who are the stakeholders and at what levels of hierarchy they should stand?
Yeah.
Yes. You all can brainstorm together, because this decision needs to be unanimous.
Yeah.
Everybody of you, and one representative can come here and arrange accordingly to the priority that you have decided on.
Talk amongst yourselves and then to other groups as well.
Benefit for all.
Are we ready? Yeah. So one representative can come here. You don't have to present anything now. It's just come and place yourself in the priority. You don't need to write. That's
You just come up with
It's
your
just an
decision,
exercise. It's a fine.
because you'll also have to brainstorm.
Now it's not just within you, but they will also have to agree that okay, you are that important or not, whatever. Okay. Yeah.
What do you feel,
Okay.
this is a process to make a policy.
Okay.
Right now, this is a process to make a policy. So here we're going to list a policy, how the policy will help the local stakeholders, and we are not discussing the benefits, not to discuss the positives and negatives. So to make a policy here, as per the groups given here, no government groups are given. So here
Fisheries is
only fisheries department, but that is only a part, a very small part, but does not look about the whole government policies or anything. So here, out of these fisheries, local business, tourism, and NGOs, for making the policy of the development of the area, that wetland, we feel is that most important, the number one stakeholder is NGOs. Because NGOs, if they protest and don't carry it, then everything will be stuck. And if NGOs are cooperative, then NGOs can get funds from fisheries, other government, they can help local businesses. If NGOs don't allow local businesses, or this will get stuck. So first comes NGOs. So NGOs will make their policies that how will support local business, how will support fisheries, and how will support tourism.
Does NGO agree? That's what we're trying to do is simplify this. We don't need to go down.
So
Let's say you can just hold the tourist placard saying you're the tourist, right?
Okay.
And then someone can from NGO come and then maybe prioritize or order yourself. Like behind him,
those
ahead
who
of
don't
him.
agree, they can give their viewpoint.
Yeah, that was his.
That is our viewpoint. Because this is a policy where we're not, as I told, we are not listing out the benefits what tourist provider. We are making a policy how the wetland will run and development and will be maintained.
Yes.
So in that viewpoint, you have to tell.
Yes. Local NGO, what do you think?
I slightly disagree. I mean, our team disagree.
Okay.
I think our main, the main priority should be given to the fisheries. Why? Because the target, we are targeting the species is our main concern.
Okay.
So I think first should be fisheries, and then second, the closest would be us, because we are the locals there. So we have kind of an emotional and also a responsibility towards protecting that area.
Mm-hmm.
So second will be local NGO. Third will be businessmen, because they will also help, in sustaining that, and also to, how do I say? What's the word?
It's fine. So
yeah.
You say there is hierarchy, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And
So
then
here I have an objection here. Fisheries will see only about the aquatic species, but you mentioned at wetland. What about the migratory birds? So
exactly.
This also policy is required.
We are just trying to
NGOs
see.
can look after all the schemes.
Yeah.
Wetland, you mentioned, these not only aquatic.
Yeah.
So migratory birds, many tourists come.
Yeah.
So migratory birds, fisheries will not have any knowledge. To tell what bird protection, what knowledge
It's
they
fine.
can give.
Let's go a bit
So
simple.
this point I don't
I
agree.
understand the complexities of the world. So
We'll definitely do this debate. We're just trying to find out the social hierarchy.
and then if one of you can.
How many of you agree with her hierarchy?
Sir, please stand. Just 2 minutes. We don't need the reasonings now. They've given. We understand it. Yeah. You agree? So one of you can come here.
Do you two agree with her? Her. Okay.
Yeah. So, but you'll have to. Sorry, but you'll have to come. One of you just. The exercise was just seeing if there is a hierarchy and if there is an order. So you have to place yourselves in the order of the hierarchy.
So let's say the majority has decided about fishery department, NGO, local business and tourism as the hierarchy. The majority has decided this. We can go into debate with that later.
Yeah.
So just stand accordingly.
Okay. I shall end this. Yeah. Okay. So we see the fisheries is first. Is it? I'm just asking. So is it this way or clockwise or anti-clockwise? This way, right? Okay. And so there is an apparent hierarchy saying fisheries and then NGO and the businessmen and the tourists. So they all have their places, right?
So
Okay.
majority of you have given the fisheries department the topmost level of the hierarchy. Okay, you
Yeah.
think that they are the topmost stakeholders, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The main concept of conservation here is that while framing any policy or while framing any management plan or anything which leads to conservation, there is no social hierarchy. There is collaborative
They're
efforts,
collaborative.
right?
Yeah.
And the exercise is just to make ourselves aware of the fact that if you place somebody or some entity above you, then it again loses the main idea of conservation.
So everyone
Right.
is important.
Everybody is an equal stakeholder in this policy making process. So you have formed a line, right?
Yeah.
It's a line. It's not a line, it's a circle. If you could just make a circle, just make a circle.
So
Okay.
initially in the exercise, we
Yes.
never mentioned queue or line,
Line.
right?
We
We just
never-
said priority. And this is just mind game saying whenever we as humans think about priority, we'll form a line or an order. But at least in our aspect, everyone is important. Of course, some may think that this is important, that is important, but overall, all of your say, all of your stands are important. And that's why it should have been a circle. But
And
That's
when
what-
you just make a circle, you do not know which is the starting point and which is the end point.
Yeah.
So that was the basic idea behind this exercise.
Yeah.
Thank you for today.
thank you so much.
A round of applause for all of you. So we'll be meeting tomorrow,
Yes.
same time.
Same
and I
time, same
guess
place.
with full participation. If we didn't bore you today. Yes, we'll
Yeah.
need that.